My name is Hunter, and this is the Steps Together podcast, and we're here with my good friend Mark.
Hi Hunter, my name's Mark.
How you doing, man?
I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate you asking me actually.
yeah, no, of course. So I know your story. I know where you're from, but to tell them, where are you from?
So I grew up in Bristol, the southwest. I moved around the southwest a lot. Um, I lived in some coastal towns in Bristol, mum and dad, sister. Um, yeah, it was quite boring, really, to be honest with you. The southwest is a very boring part of the country, from my aspect anyway. But I was always really like low self-esteem as a kid and didn't feel good enough about anything. I didn't have the best environment at home, but I think they try to do the best they can. A lot of love was given through material things and stuff like that. And I never fitted in with my friends. I had friends and I was always really the class clown. Does that make sense to
Yeah,
you? Yeah. And at school, I would act out. I would like be the center of attention because I felt less than. I felt like I wanted to be the cool kid, but I was never really the cool kid. Does that make sense?
yeah. No, definitely. And back then, what was Bristol like?
Rough. um, there was nice parts of it. There's trendy parts of it, like Clifton, um, fish ponds. But there's really bad parts like Easton and St Paul's, which is just there's a lot of drugs. It's
Yeah,
a well-known drug, like yardies, you know the word yardies sort of thing. There's a lot of that going on. And I found drugs attractive from a very early age. From an early age, the first thing I got into was smoking cannabis. I was smoking cannabis at 12 years old with my friends. We would save our dinner money and we'd use it to buy tinks back then and apes. I think
yeah.
we paid £14. We smoked Squidgy Brown and, oh God, Solid. I'm trying to think of all of them. There were so many different words to cannabis. Do you know what I mean? It's taking me back now. And we'd get our money together and we'd go to the park on the lunchtime and roll these spliffs up. And do you know what? It was very innocent and very fun.
Yeah.
But then alcohol became part of it. And back then,
At 12?
yeah. We were always looking at the bigger. I looked up to the bigger kids. So I would be around the bigger boys, and my little gang. We'd look at the bigger kids, and we want to be part of that. It was attractive, and we'd be drinking big bottles of White Lightning, which was cider.
Yeah.
Really strong cider. And on weekends, that's what we do on weekends. We get absolutely blottoed, what I would call back then mashed up,
Yeah.
to the point of when I literally didn't know if I like to feel on alcohol. So when you're so passed out and like you hit the floor, but you don't even know the floor's hitting you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'd have bruises over myself, and but I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't feel it till after, you know. And then we'd chuck it. So I don't know if you've ever heard of poppers.
Like oh, yeah.
So it's actually used, I think now it's mainly used for like gay sex and all that, loosening up. I think it's for any type of sex, really, to be honest with you. And we'd snort that and it gives you a really rush to your brain. And then your head feels like it's going to explode. But it was such
So it's like an inhalant?
Yeah, it's a liquid.
Yeah.
I don't know, ammonitrate? Does that ring a bell as well? No.
Yeah, no, I've heard of it, but I didn't know. I've never seen it or anything.
So that feeling was really attractive to me. We had my little gang of friends, and then slowly it materialized into other party drugs. So I did a lot of raving. We moved around. I spent a lot of time in Devon. I spent a lot of time in Devon going to this club called Kingsley. And back in the day, there was like big DJs that would go there. Also Plymouth Warehouse. And I was right into like house music, and also it was like old school, which we call like drum and bass and stuff like that. And we'd go raving. So then speed came along, ecstasy, cocaine, and it was all quite innocent and quite fun for a long time. To be honest with you, we'd go up and down the country doing raves, but we'd also have a lot of consequences that didn't seem like consequences back then. We'd drive cars, the older people would, and they'd be off their heads. and like we'd have crashes, but wouldn't think of it as a problem. It would just, we'd laugh about it.
Yeah. And how old were you then?
15, 16.
Yeah.
And then I started driving at 17. I got job, I left home. So I had this girlfriend who, it was perfect. We were on a wavelength. We liked to party together, you know, and we got a flat together. We moved in together, and we would literally party for the weekends. And the thing is, it slowly started to change. So it wouldn't just be weekends no more. We'd be doing the partying on the Wednesday and on the Thursday, and then the Friday, and it was manageable. We both had to work. I had crappy jobs. I work in a factory, car parts, or like photocopy parts and stuff like that. Even fruit, I think we did at one point, stuff like that. And I just jump in between jobs. There was no ambition. Drugs took away my ambition. I had no focus of what I wanted to do. I know when I was a young kid, I wanted to be an actor, and I was quite good at, when I was younger. I was in a lot of shows and stuff like that. But the drugs just stopped it all. There was no ambition. And we just earn our money for the partying, and it became very toxic very quick. And to fast forward, I didn't ever expect it to get to this point, because I grew up with a lot of people that had drug addicts as brothers and sisters, older brothers and sisters who were like on heroin, crack cocaine, all that sort of stuff. And actually going back then, it was freebasing crack cocaine, so they would cook it up. And I never thought I'd touch that stuff. I was like, I'm never gonna do that. I would judge people like that, which was really sad looking back at it. And then I was at a party once, and heroin came round on this foil. I didn't even know what it was. I was so naive looking back at it. And it was like chasing the dragon. I'd heard of what that was, but I didn't really know what it was. And I smoked it. And I always remember this feeling. I felt sick, and I was sick. I was really sick. And but I remember feeling this euphoria and energy, like and comfort. It felt like a blanket, a really warm little blanket had been wrapped around me. And I just suddenly thought, I like this. And weirdly enough, at the same time, there was ecstasy pills coming out that had heroin mixed up in them, like a lot of drugs do these days as well. They mix drugs in. And we'd still go to the parties, but very quickly the partying stopped, and we would buy heroin and stay at home and just start smoking this heroin. And we'd do that on a Friday and a Saturday, then not do it on the Sunday, go to work. But very quickly, I started to realise there was something wrong with me. Like I couldn't function without it. And I'm like, that was it. And then it all seems like a bit of a dream now, to be honest with you, when I look back at it. It's not like...
It's almost like it didn't even happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, it's just like, was that really my life? Because from that point on, it sort of just merges all the way along, if you know what I mean. So I went off to Australia when I was 21, and I flew to Australia on the idea that I was going to stay off drugs. And I flew to Australia, and I was withdrawing from heroin really badly. And I remember I drunk a lot on the plane. I was really bad. I was being sick in the toilet. And then when I got to Australia with my friend, all I did for about 3 days solid was drink whiskey all the time, just to get myself some sleep. And then I got through like this detox. So I didn't even know that it was a detox looking back. I was just doing what I needed to do to get through it. And then I spent another year there, living it up, doing things, but I also fell back into drugs back there. I was smoking cannabis and stuff like that. And then I came back. I would have loved to have stayed there, but I didn't. And I came back, and it was like, as soon as I came back to this country, it was like I picked off right where I finished. I literally picked up heroin within weeks. And it was like, literally, I remember coming down, and I was like, I'm never going to do it. I got off the plane, and I was like, this is going to be a fresh new start. I'm going to get a flashy new job. And it was like, there was no choice in that. Like I believed that, but I had no choice in that. I went straight back to what I knew. And it just got pitiful. That's the only way I can describe it. It's pitiful, because I was doing things. I'd split up with this girl because we were just taking money off it. We'd steal off each other.
Yeah.
And it was toxic. It was really toxic. I remember I smashed her car window because she owed me some money, and it was like a £5. But that £5 seemed like everything in the world to me because I needed it.
Well, that's what you needed in that moment.
Yeah. And then I moved cities. I've done, you know, I'm geographical,
Yeah.
trying to run away, trying to sort the problem out, and then it just got even worse. And I always remember this. I was in this house, and like we would call it a crack house, and people were smoking crack, shooting up, you know, and the heroin had got to the point where you couldn't smoke it anymore, and this happened quite often. But I was never going to do this, and this guy said to me, "Well, how do you want to take it? You need it." You know, I was being sick, I was shaking, I was rattling, as we call it, clucking, and he went, "I'll inject it into you." And I can remember this like yesterday. I thought I never want to do that. I didn't want to do that. This wasn't what I saw. This wasn't the plan, but I so needed it. And like the powerlessness, I just remember putting my arm out. I cringed as he put it in me. But all bets were off from that point because it did something else for me that was completely different. I remember I fell back onto that. I don't know if it was a bed or a sofa, and I was just gone.
Yeah.
And straight away, that feeling, I was like, I'm doing that again because this is quicker than what I was doing before, like smoking it like non-stop. And then it just got crazy. Crime, like for me, needle represents crime because I needed more drugs, I needed more money.
Yeah.
I also, once I got to that place, everything became unmanageable. There was nothing I couldn't own nothing. I couldn't have my own place. I couldn't cope with it.
Yeah.
Couldn't pay the rent. I would just, and it would literally be whatever crimes were there. So it would be shoplifting. I've stolen off my parents. I'm ashamed to say I've stolen like 20 grand off them. I stole checkbooks and would forge them. I was really good at kiting. Shoplifting, sometimes embarrassing shoplifting, like running out of shops with alcohol in a rucksack with like security guards chasing me. And knowing it was so wrong, I remember this, I always remember this. I went to my mum's and it was around Christmas, and it could have been Christmas Day, Boxing Day, it was Christmas, but she would hide her handbag. She'd have it by her feet, but she'd tie it to a chair. So there was I'd have to literally untie it to get her handbag away. And I can remember, and at this point I was allowed in the house, which was a miracle in itself. But I've been able to speak to my mum while she's in front of me, with her handbag tied up in the kitchen. I managed to get my hand down, put my hand in her handbag, take her wallet out with her cards, take her car keys, and then say I'm going to the toilet or to the bedroom. I've managed to push the car down the drive the car down to a cash point. She'd always leave her PIN numbers in do that, drive the car back and put it all back so she wouldn't know. And I can always remember thinking this, when I was doing it, I was like, I don't want to be doing this. This is the last thing I want to be doing. This is my mother, she gave birth to me. But my conscience was there, but I just couldn't go by it because I just needed it so badly. And I did a big amends for that. I'm still doing an amends for that,
a living amends.
Yeah, I always will be.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the experiences, So yeah, and then by the end of so I will go into this because I think this is quite prominent. In 2009, I was injecting. I'd had nowhere to stay for a long time. I was homeless, and I was quite gritty. I was like very dirty and all that. And I'd gone to the point where I couldn't inject in my arms no more. My arms were like completely gone, and I was injected in my groin, and I got a blood clot in my leg, and the blood clot broke off and travelled to my lung. And my lung collapsed. I had double septicemia and pneumonia, and basically my mum took me in because I was really ill, and the septicemia would make me so delusional. I was like talking stuff that didn't make no sense. I think back to it, if she had a camera and showed me, I probably wouldn't believe it now. But she was like, "You're not making no sense." I couldn't breathe. My breathing was so shallow, and I remember her taking me to the hospital, and they put me in intensive care, and they put this bowl thing around my head for me to breathe, and I was so claustrophobic with it, and I was in a hospital intensive care room, and I took in heroin. I couldn't inject in that room. My leg was so bad, and all I knew was my groin because my veins are gone, and I was taking this thing off that was meant to be saving my breathing, my life basically, and I was still smoking, sat in the hospital bed in the intensive care. And I'll never forget this. A woman came in, and I thought I was so clever, right? I stubbed everything under the sheet, and she came in and she said, "We're going to have to put you into a reduced coma." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because you're just not, you're not keeping that on your head, and you're still smoking drugs." She said, "We could phone the police. I know you have drugs on you." But she said, "We're not going to do that." And I didn't even know what I was agreeing to be honest with you. I just agreed to it because there was something in me that said, this is really serious, even though all I was thinking about was the drugs, and I was more scared about where they'd end up by the time I woke up. That was my thinking. I remember being put into this coma, and I can remember this quite well. Like, she said, "You're going to start counting down," and I just remember like everything going dark. It was like everything in my head was going really dark and heavy. And then I was gone, and then I woke up. I'm not exactly sure. I've noticed up to like nearly 3 months later, and I woke up. When I woke up, for the first 24 hours, I don't think you really remember anything anyway. But I had a tube in my throat. My mum was there. My dad must have been there, but I don't remember where he was. And I didn't need drugs. They've detoxed me with methadone or morphine or whatever. And I don't know how quickly this happened, but my mind was telling me, what I call the obsession today, was telling me that I need these drugs, and I haven't had them for 3 months. And my mum was stood there, and I can remember her saying to me, "Oh, you're never going to use drugs again, are you? This is insane. You nearly died, you know." And I'm not even really taking it that seriously, but I also am going, "Yeah, all right, I understand. I promise you." And I really believe that I was promising. I was actually promising. I was like, "Yeah, I promise you. It's really serious." But I don't know how long after, but all I remember is that I was begging her then to score for me because all I could think about was using. And I can remember her crying, and I was even abusive to her, asking her to get a taxi or get me a taxi. I was saying, she's like, "Mark, you can't even get out of the bed. You can't walk. You can't breathe." But I didn't care. I was just like, the taxi. And obviously it didn't happen, but I will never remember. I will always remember that. It was just so painful. Like, there's so much guilt and shame what I did to my mum, the peace of mind. Like, they spent all that time where I'm in a coma, and my sister was alive then, and I remember my mum telling me that she was there nearly every day going, "Mark, you can get through this." But I have no understanding of that because I was in a coma, and I was so lost in addiction that and I laugh, like I sort of smile like it's insane.
Yeah.
Does that make, like, I don't recognize myself in it anymore.
Yep.
Because my life has transformed so much. But I don't know how, I can't remember how long I stayed in hospital for now, but it was a long time. I had to learn to walk again. I had no muscles left in my legs because I've been in the hospital, the bed so long. I had to learn to breathe without a tube. They used to take me off for about an hour a day, and it felt like I'd done a marathon because I had to learn to breathe on my own. And I remember every day I'd have to learn with this walking thing. She'd show me how to walk and all that. But the whole time, I was just thinking about when I was going to use. That was all I thought about. It was like the tunnel vision. I'm getting out of here because I'm going to get there at some point. And I nearly died.
Honestly, So crazy. I mean, you're literally describing like the insanity and obsession of addiction, and also you explained the progression of it as well. How many times you said, "Oh, I'm never going to do that." Every addict says that. "Oh, I'm never going to snort it. I'm never going to smoke it. I'm never going to shoot it." And then those nevers quickly, you know,
Every never
yeah,
I came
happen.
to. There isn't, the only thing that's not left is death, really.
Yeah.
Um, and I always related to like my thinking being wrong
Yeah.
from an early age, you know, because I can remember, I'll share this. I was in a house at about 14, and we were smoking the weed, like I explained back to you about, you know, and drinking cider. And the people's house we were in, her parents were heroin addicts. They had HIV, and they both looked like what I sort of say the Walking Dead. They were corpses. And this house was disgusting. It had bottles of methadone on the floor. They were like, the kids lived in on mattresses on the floor. I look back and think, how the hell did they even stay there? And the parents used to go off into this room. They'd cook up their hits and obviously go off into this room so we couldn't see it. But when they brought back in, I didn't even know what the drug was. But I remember thinking, oh, that looks really nice. And I never really, so I always thought the thinking was completely wrong from a very young age. It was escapism. It was always about some sort of escapism away from me. Yeah. Because I didn't like me.
So even after being in a coma for like 3 months, having to relearn how to breathe, walk, eat, all of that, what happened whenever you were finally released?
I went to stay at my mum's. I probably got a couple of days under my belt. And then I ended, all I can tell, I can't remember exactly what happened, but I know that I ended up back at this house where we did crack and heroin. And I think I did crack first, and then heroin was really quickly. And I think I'd lied to myself already. Even though I knew I was thinking about it, I'd lied to myself and said I was going to do it on weekends only. I actually believed that.
Well, that's the lie that we tell ourselves, is that we can manage it and that it's different than last time. Because you were in a coma for 90 days, things had changed. Unbelievable.
I know. So I bullshitted myself completely. And I've always done that. Every time I've done a detox, you know, rehab detox, home detoxes, community detoxes, even a hospital detox in what back then we'd call a mental ward. I'd always be like, well, I'm going to use on a weekend, or I'm going to use on like a Saturday morning, or but all this illusion in my head, you know. So that is exactly my experience. Every time I'd ever got stopped, but I wouldn't stop for very long. The hospital was the longest time, I think, looking back at it. Wow.
So at some point throughout your journey, you ended up moving to London. So what was that? How'd that happen? Why?
That was geographical.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get clean.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to get clean. I had no understanding of how to get clean. It was just, I didn't know. Do you know what? If I'm really honest with you, I wanted to move away from drugs, but I don't think I wanted to get clean. I never wanted to get clean, really, I don't think. I think a part of me thought I wanted to get clean, but I didn't. So I moved up to London. I had ties with London, family and stuff like that. And it was like jumping out of the fire into the frying pan into the fire, to be honest with you. And all I can tell you is I got mixed up in stuff. Like there was this funny, you know, there was this Scouser guy who sold drugs to a friend's, well, I say friends, acquaintance, let's be honest with you. I didn't really have any serious friends. And I stole a 9 bar of heroin off him. And I haven't spoken about this for a long time, but I ended up in a flat where he was kicking off about where his drugs had gone. And this is the only experience I have of this person, like, to me, but he pulled out a gun, and somehow someone had told him that I'd done it. And all I remember him is putting the gun to my head and saying, "Where's my drugs?" And I didn't know what to say because they were gone. I was like, well, I don't know what you want to say to you. They're literally, and this was like weeks down the line. I just not, It'd all gone in a needle pretty much. Like I'd been quite generous with it as well and made a bit of cash on the side with it, but there was no thinking around that either. It was just like, oh God, look, I've got all this. Hallelujah, it was like, you know, like Christmas. And I remember that gun being there. And when I'm on drugs, I'm quite ballsy, but I think it's because it masks the fear that's really going on inside me. Does that make sense? So I remember thinking at the time, I don't care if he shoots me. I think I was just trying to convince myself, but I had that balls to be like that inside. And I went, all right, shoot me. You're never going to get him back, you know? And he was like, I will pull the trigger. And I was like, and but I knew there was no bullets in the gun because I'd already seen the bullets in the bag. I don't know 100%, but I was pretty convinced. So he'd give me like a deadline. I just didn't have a runner. Like I did with all those sort of things, I'd run. Do you know what I mean?
The bullets in the bag.
They were in a bag. I clocked them. So I think my fake confidence come from the fact, oh, there shouldn't be no bullets in this gun. It probably was just a backup lot. But I just remember thinking, there's no bullets in this gun. And also I was so ballsy. We were on this quite busy street in this flat. And I just remember thinking, if you pull that trigger, a lot of people are going to know about a gunshot going off here. It was quite close to the central part of the city. Yeah. So I just thought, people are going to notice a big gunshot. Do you know what I mean? So he gave me a deadline. You need to find those drugs and quick. But I never saw the guy again. I did a runner. I was good at running. Yeah. I learned to run a lot.
Yeah, I did a lot of that too.
Yeah. You know, and I've done that with other people. They've given me drugs to sell. I would do it for a little bit.
I know that at some point of you being in London, it got really, really dark in your addiction.
I had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
I had no choice. I burnt every bridge that was possible. So there'd be many a night where I know I've become quite fearful of other people. People stab each other in the back. And I would be like that as well. I wouldn't like literally hurt you, but I would take any opportunity going. You know, I'd be quite easily smoke your drugs and hope you look for them. You probably heard that saying before.
Yeah. I was just like that. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I don't know. Oh, we'll find them. Do you know what I mean? Open or buy some more on the way so I can take them as well. Yeah. And that wasn't because I wanted to. It's because I had no choice. Yeah. It was, you know, whatever I had to do to get what I got. So I had nowhere to live. I had no money. I never begged. It was one thing. I had this pride in myself that I'm not going to beg to anyone. And I ended up in some grotty studio flats with people that I remember. So there was a big period where I was with this girl who was a street worker, and she'd go and sell herself, and I wouldn't think nothing of it. Well, I'd go and earn my money my way, shoplifting, whatever. Wallets, you name it, handbags. There was a point where I would go in clubs and I would take people's handbags when they were dancing. And people, I used to think it was amazing that people would actually have their PIN numbers in their wallet with all 4 cards, you know, and then you go to at night, you get the wallet, the handbag at 11 o'clock, and then you'd hang out to it, they didn't even notice, and at 12 o'clock you go back for another 500 quid. You know, we did quite well off that sort of stuff. So, but that stuff started to get harder and harder, so I had nowhere to go. I remember my first night of not having nowhere to go, and I just found a park in Hatley Wick, and I just remember just lying in the grass and just thinking, is this it? Is this really it? And it's not a nice place to be. I just get shivers from it now, like not having anywhere to go, and you know, and also the fear of the fact that you've got no money and you need to get drugs still. Do you know what I mean? And I used to go on a bin shed. So we have like a lot of council blocks have these bin chutes, and I'd go in the bin chutes and break in the doors, and it'd just be somewhere safe. You can make it quite homely if you need to as well, which is really sad. But it was just, I felt safe there, even though I wasn't safe, you know. And I can always remember, like, it's funny, summer nights were the hardest as well. Like, people talk about the cold, being really hard. But when it's really, really hot and you've got nowhere to hide from that heat, that's really hard as well. That you don't get fans when you're outside, do you know what I mean? Or in bin sheds, you don't get, you know. And yeah, it just got really pitiful, very pitiful. And this is what so I got an infection on my leg, and I wasn't able to manage it, obviously. And I've been using on a vein here, and basically it got infected, and the wound got bigger and bigger and bigger. I was still hitting up in it because I needed to. I had no choice. And then I ended up going to the hospital, and the wound was so bad that they had to dress it in live maggots in this like dressing to eat away the dirty tissue. I'm actually currently going through a thing with the hospital to get skin graft of it and all that. Like it's healed now, but it's just very tight on my leg. But the infection was because I had nowhere. You know, I couldn't sterilize myself. I had nowhere to go. Do you know what I mean? It was just brutal.
That's just the places that addiction takes us, you know? I mean, to the point where like literally you had to have a bandage with maggots in it it's unbelievable.
Yeah. And it still didn't matter.
Yeah.
In my head, it didn't matter.
You were still trying to use.
I would still justify it to everybody. And also, my ego would tell me, oh, well, at least I'm sorting it out. And I'd go, look, I've got maggots around my leg, thinking it was quite cool in a weird way, but that's because my low self-esteem and my guilt and shame was the only way I knew how to cover that up.
So wait, they put it on there and then you went out?
Yeah, and then they dress it, go back and dress it again. I had to keep going back. I'd keep dressing it. So every few days they'd take it off because they'd eat the flesh. I wouldn't feel it. They were in like a bandage. I wouldn't even know they were there.
Wow.
I do remember feeling disgusted myself. I was like, this is what's got to happen. But being lost in addiction, even though I was disgusted, the second thought was like, where am I going to get my next high? Does that make sense? Yeah.
And did you talk to your parents at this time? Did they know that was going on?
I think my mum did, if I remember rightly.
Yep.
Yeah, my mum did. But what I put them through, like the peace of mind I took from them, like I live in amends, like we said earlier on.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a living amends, you know, because I stole so much peace of mind from mum. And I think about the things I've stood outside my mum's house, screaming and shouting to let me in just for money.
Yeah.
Thinking that's going to really make a difference.
Unfortunately, whenever we have families that love us and care about us to that point, they'll do anything. Yeah. And they feel like the solution is to help you stop the pain that you're in that moment. But really, it just puts the pain off for a later time.
I know they don't, my mum specifically, I know she doesn't understand, but she enabled me.
Yeah.
You know, and she knows that I can say that quite freely to her today. But that's a mother's love, isn't it? You know, I lost my sister in addiction. While I was in addiction. And I remember getting the call and going to the hospital. And I really wanted to be present for my mum. My sister was like the complete opposite of me. She'd done really well. She was a fitness instructor. She was an accountant. And she got married. She had her own house. She'd done really well, and then she collapsed dead of a heart condition, which is really rare in people. It happens to a lot of fitness people, and I look back now and I think my mum lost her child, who was doing really well, was you know in a way the golden child, but then I'm still stealing her peace of mind by what I'm doing and no care about what she's going through. I do today, obviously, thankfully. And I was there. I can remember getting my mum out of the hospital room, but I wasn't present. Does that make sense? I was there, but I wasn't present. Yeah. I was thinking about how I'm going to get high. I was thinking about methadone. I was thinking about whatever I needed to get through it. I was just there because I was there. Yeah. I couldn't be an emotional support, really, you know. I couldn't support myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't do nothing. I was a mess.
So at some point, this turns into a good story. So where did that? Obviously, it ended somehow, and then tell me how it
So
started.
I went through a drug service called addiction, and I've been in and out of drug service. You know, methadone. I used to always think methadone was being clean. I was quite deluded like that. I thought if I'm just smoking weed and taking methadone, even doing crack cocaine, I'm clear. I thought heroin was the problem, because the heroin was what took the physical. You know, I was at this point, and I always remember this. I was in a disabled toilet, and it was disgusting. But it was there was a mirror on the wall. It was broken, and I remember I was trying to have a crack pipe. I was trying to get a hit together. I even had a can of beer. I remember opening it and it all fluffing everywhere. And there was this moment where I looked in the mirror. I was looking in the mirror to see if I could see my groin. And I looked in the mirror and I saw myself. And I connected with my eyes, because I hadn't looked in the mirror for so long, not properly. And I saw my eyes, and the only way I can describe it to you is I saw darkness. I saw like a tunnel of darkness. And like in that moment, I felt disgust for myself. I felt like guilty. I felt the shame. I thought, what a monster. I looked like, I always either say it was a devil or a monster looking back at me. That ain't me. I say it weren't me, but I don't think I ever really knew I was anyway. But I've become this thing that I never. And then I look back to like, remember seeing all like what we'd call back then junkies, you know, when I was younger, and I thought, I'm that and worse. And I never wanted to get to that. And that was never on the cards. It was, like we said earlier on, it was a bit of weed and a bit of cider, and a bit of partying. And then suddenly it had gone from that to that, with so much more in the middle. You know, this is just a bit. And I was like, and in that moment, it was either I kill myself or I finally do something about it once and for all. And I engaged with my key worker, who was amazing, that guy. I will never forget what he did for me. And then I went to a rehab. I went to a detox first. I was on benzos as well. And I went to a detox in Plymouth. And I can remember the day going in there, and I banged up like an eighth of heroin. Literally, I don't know, like 3 needles worth. And I walked in there, and it was not working. The drugs had stopped working a long time ago. I don't know if you get that. Yeah. It was just the idea that it would do more, but it never did. And I remember going in there, and I had this bag of Valium on me as well, and they took it all off me, and I was just like, and I just said to you, I thought I was either going to kill myself or get help, but once I'd gone through the door, I'd sort of already backtracked on the idea already. Does that make sense? Like,
well, yeah, you were in fear of it. Yeah.
That idea of killing myself, that had gone out of my mind already. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
And I remember my first night, and it was like I wanted to rip my skin off or rip my head off, and I spent, I can't remember exactly how many weeks in that treatment centre. I think it was about 4.5. And I came off the methadone quite quick. So they would put me on methadone. They reduced you. I was already on the methadone anyway. They reduced me off the methadone quite fast. But it was the benzos that really took forever. I remember them carrying me up and down the stairs, because there were stairs in there, because I was so, like, I couldn't sleep, but I was so shattered. And I was still fighting. I can remember trying to ring people and ask them to send drugs in and all that, and they were going, no, not happening, you know, and all that. I was still fighting really badly. And I even smoked weed in that detox. I got away with it as well. It's like school again. I ended around with the bad kids.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, if you're anything like me, you attract those people. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Actually, my parents used to blame all my friends, but really it was me. So I attracted them and they attracted me. It was just, honestly.
My parents were the same. They blame all my friends, and I'm not saying some of them weren't as bad as me, but they didn't make me.
Yeah.
Does that mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it was normally my idea.
Yeah. You know? And I detoxed in there, thank God. I didn't get caught for the weed. And then I went to a detox in Clapham. Not detox, a rehab in Clapham, in South London. I remember going there, and I remember being absolutely terrified because I had no substance in me.
Yeah.
I felt like social anxiety was at another level.
Yeah. And you knew that area.
Yeah. And not well, but I knew it.
Yeah.
And I knew where you could score drugs. So I got there and I went in this treatment centre. There's a big black woman. She was brilliant, but I was terrified of her. She was like, "Oh, you're here to stay," and I felt like a prisoner straight away. Like, we're going to keep an eye on you. But do you know what? Thank God they did, because I was still obsessing.
Yeah.
All I could think about was using still, even though I sort of felt like I didn't want to. And I got in there. There was another guy there, a sport worker. He was like my chaperone. He watched me, but he worked out what my mind was doing already, because he knew.
Yeah.
He was in recovery. I didn't know that yet, but he knew. He could see, like I do today. I can see people in their eyes when they're thinking about drugs.
Yep.
When their mind's just on that and nothing else really matters, you know.
And you can tell by the communication as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the things they say too. Yeah. It's like this. It's like a mirror of who. Whenever I talk to people and I'm listening to what they're saying and they're struggling, like, it's the same thing that I used to do. Yeah. Same things I used to say. Yeah.
You see yourself, don't you? That's what it is. You see yourself. And we went to a fellowship meeting that night, and he was watching me, and I was thinking, I was trying to, I can't think of the word I want to say, but I was trying to I was going to plan to do a little runner, but come back, all that thinking again. Well, I can just do it on weekends. I could just do it this one night while I'm here, get a nice little bit of sleep. It'll be fine. But he didn't let me out of sight. And I stayed there. The people were lovely. They were all in recovery. I didn't believe them. They were in recovery. They told me they were in recovery, but I thought, nah, they ain't got a clue. They look too well. Do you know what I mean? They smiled. They were laughing. I was like, no, you're just faking it, But I think it was about a month in, and we were meant to go out in groups, and we were up near the Sainsbury's on Clapham High Road, and I got left behind. I was like, well, I don't even know if I got left behind. I don't know, they just wanted rid of me, because I was quite angry little kid. Like, I say little kid, I wasn't a kid, but I was like a kid. Yeah. I was quite angry. I wasn't really that friendly, I was like quite, just edgy all the time, and like, oh, leave me alone. And they left me, and the only way I can explain this, right, is my feet did the walking, my mind didn't. My feet did the walking, my mind had no power, because I can remember my feet walking, and before I knew it, I was at a crack dealers and heroin dealers in Clapham Park with one in my hand. I think about 2 or 2 actually, I can't remember exactly. And I walked back to detox, and I got to the detox, and I was putting the gear on the foil that I'd snuck from downstairs in the kitchen, and I was just like, how's this happened? I don't even remember planning it. It was like the minute I was on my own, my feet were just gone. Like, it's like I had no power in my feet, you know what I mean? And I had a couple of lines, and something in me switched. I felt sick, but it wasn't like the sick I felt when I first done heroin, because I hadn't had heroin for like 2 months at this point. Yeah. And I was just like, and I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I knew I was thinking about drugs, but something inside me, and I was just like, this ain't gonna cop it no more. And I can remember flushing the crack down the toilet, the rest of the heroin, and in that moment, I felt some sort of freedom I'd never. And it was a miracle in itself, because I don't give away drugs. I don't flush drugs away well. I don't get rid of drugs. They're mine. Do you know what I mean? I'm not letting you have it for no money. And it was just like, I felt my chest sort of like relieve and all that sort of stuff. And I was just like, I've got to do something about this. And from that moment, the obsession sort of went. And I thought, I don't need it. Why do I want it?
So you've been sober since then?
That was there.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was what, 6 years and a couple of months, I don't know, 3 months. I lost count. I don't count it. I count it by year dates now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I did for a long time. I'd count it like every 90 days, you know, and all that sort of stuff. But when it got after like 2 years, it would just be like, I know when the next year's coming.
Yeah.
And I went through 12-step fellowship, you know, I
Yeah.
went through the 12 steps and all that. And then that was an eye opener.
Yeah.
You know, I was always blaming everyone else. It was always your fault, you know. It was always, the problem was me, you know what I mean? And I sort of knew that really, to be honest with you, but I was like, and I got honest. Like, it wasn't even about getting honest, it was about vulnerability, because I connect honesty with vulnerability. Does that make sense? So if you start seeing the real me, that's really weak, you know?
Yep.
But that in itself was quite freeing, because I was like, I started to make relationships on genuineness, you know what?
Right.
Real, with real respect for who I was. And that was a journey in itself, because I had to learn who I was.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I liked. I'd like what you liked.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I'd listen to the music you listen to.
Yeah.
Even though I still liked that music, I would sort of do it. I can remember from very early, Cypress Hill, you know, Hits from the Balm and all that. But I would do that because of the people I was around and the older kids. So it was like I adapted to what, I always say I was a chameleon.
Yeah. But whenever you did it in recovery, you were doing it to learn who you were. Yeah.
No, so in recovery, I was like, hang on, I need to find out who I am.
Yeah.
So it was like, I ain't eating proper foods. And sandwich would be like a meal a day. Do you know what I mean? I remember I had a thing with chicken and stuffing sandwiches. That's all the food I tasted for quite a long time. Yeah. Right? Tesco's would have them in your pocket, you know. So then suddenly I was eating, like, I got took to Nando's in treatment. I was like, Nando's, what's this? It was mad, mate. I tell you, I was like, Nando's. I was like, what's hot? What's it taste like hot, you know? And they were like, just try it, you know? And I love food today because I'll eat anything, but that was an experience in itself, you know? And like music, I started to realize there was so much more out there, like TV and all that, even though I don't really watch TV now. My life's too full for TV, you know? I ended up moving into, I got to the end of my treatment stay, and I went for the 12 steps in treatment as well. And then the guy who was there, who was really good with me, he sponsored me when I left as well. And I really connected with him. And, you know, I'd always been forever grateful for the time he gave to me and that. And I went to a move-on house for sober living, basically. I sort of got commitments at meetings, went to a lot of meetings. I had nothing else to do. So it was sort of thing we did back then. Yeah. You know, coffee shops, coffee shop recovery, we used to call it for a little bit. Yeah. I went to college. I did health and social care. I didn't know what I wanted to do at college. Yep. You know, I just thought, let's try. I didn't go to school, and like I didn't touch on this, but I went to school, but I got kicked out of school because I had dyslexia. So, and they never recognised it back then. It was more like you were a bad kid. And like I said, I was a class clown as well, but also because I couldn't learn. Yeah. You know, I felt it really hard to understand stuff, writing and that. So I went to college and, you know, I got checked for dyslexia, like, yeah, you got it. Got the support I needed. I finished my course, you know. Amazing. I did a counselling level 2 course as well. Flew through that, you know. I can write pretty damn well today. Yeah. I can write, you know, I write, you know, and then I went and did, I got a job in my old treatment centre, you know, I was running groups and stuff like that, you know. I built confidence, you know, I had no confidence. I remember being in that treatment centre and like, I wouldn't talk to you. I would sit in a chair I remember I couldn't even say I'm Mark, and we said, you know, I'm an addict. I couldn't even say that. That was hard.
Yeah.
Like it'd be like I've got, you know, but then I was running groups, you know, yeah. And then I left that job. I went and volunteered somewhere. I did a level 3 diploma in health and social care, and I volunteered somewhere back in Tower Hamlets. And so yeah, I was very blessed that a lot of fellowship people helped me decorate and stuff like. I made like some really great friends, like you as well. You know what I mean? Recovery's given me a lot. You know, I got a job working in my own sober living for a while, but I made the choice that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Whenever we first met, that's where you were working. Yeah.
yeah, we met in Bethnal Green.
Yeah.
I was,
And all the people from the sober living were there at the meeting as well.
not all of them, but some of them. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good old days. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a hell of a journey. I've gone through some dark moments in recovery, but it's all been worth. I always feel the thinking I talked about earlier on. That's been the transformation.
Yeah.
The thinking, like, I don't think any experience is a bad experience. So when it is a bad experience, it's always something to learn from it.
Right.
And I was always very negative thinking before.
Yeah.
I attacked myself. And
You would have used bad experiences at 100% as a reason, or good experiences, but really those were the things that we would use.
I'd tell you that was the reason, even though it wasn't.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
I would manipulate that reason. I
Yeah.
manipulate anything. You know?
Like a sob story almost.
Yeah. I can play the big victim. You know, I was up in court and I've been like, you know, giving it the eye so I don't go to prison. Do you know what I mean? I'm the victim here, Judge. You know, I was excellent at that. But you know, every experience has been like, even my bad moments, I feel like it's, you know, it's, you're walking up a mountain. It's not always about the destination. Sometimes the journey is what builds you. I really truly believe that, because I've got stronger. You know, I've become comfortable. Like, I say this and I feel like it's cheesy, but it's my truth. I love myself, and I never thought that was possible. Like, there's still days where I'm a little bit like, oh, I'd love to fix that or whatever, but I'm able to be me. I'm not scared of judgment anymore. I always had this overthinking mind of whatever people were thinking of me, or what I should be. That doesn't consume me anymore. Do you know what I mean? And I found validation within myself. You know, I needed to, and I think that's from doing all the good things I do. I realised that I'm good at what I do. I'm a good person. Like, that was my addiction. That stole what I could have been. But I never had the chance to find out what I could have been, because I'd already felt less than. And so I just, you know, I always felt like I'd been traumatized as a kid, and then I took the drugs and traumatized myself double.
Yeah.
And then I've got to come out of that, and like people, you know, a lot of people think you come out of I'm into addiction and like things should be all right. But no, there's a lot of work. You know, I do a lot of work, but I've stuck at it. You know, I've worked hard. I can say that. I work hard. I do a good job.
Well, yeah. I mean, man, you came from living in parks and toilets and whatever with, you know, open wounds and with maggots on them, and you know, being in comas and all of that, to, you know, who you are now, and to have the job that you have where you can help people and all of that, man. I mean,
my passion was to be a key worker.
Yeah.
Because I never forget what my key worker did for me.
Right.
It's like he gave me that last chance that I needed. And I thought, if I can do that for one person, and hopefully I've done it for a few more, but if one person, like, they've got to do what I've got to do once they've been in. You know, I always say, you know, a treatment centre gives you the tools. It's the ambulance, it's the hospital. Then you've got to go out and live life. You know, it's you know, and that's what I try and do for people now. You know, and I've travelled. You know, I've travelled. I have a focus today. You know, do you know what? I've given back my family peace of mind. I've given myself peace of mind with it. Because I think about My mum messaged me last night because they're out traveling in Europe somewhere. They were in Lisbon in Portugal. She sent me a message saying how beautiful it was. You know, they can do that. And they sort of did that in my using, but it'd be more like bringing me down if I had a phone to see if I was alive.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like, oh, Mark, just thought I'd let you know these photos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're not worried about what I'm doing because they know I'm doing all right, you know. And I think that's took time, like a living amends, like we said earlier on. You know, the first year, what's going to happen? The second year, maybe this is still, you know, dicey area. But by the third year, that sort of changed, you know.
Yeah.
I talked with my dad, like two adults. You know, I was a very defiant, defensive person. I was like, don't speak to me. You know, anything you said to me, I'd take as an assault.
Yeah.
I learned that, you know, yeah, opinions, I'm not bothered by people's opinions anymore, unless I want it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Unless you're asking for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't and I think when I had to learn boundaries. I had no boundaries for you and I had no boundaries for myself.
Yeah.
So I had to learn all that as well. I've got really good boundaries for myself. And also I understand, I respect your boundaries. You know, I have healthy relationships today.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
If you could change anything that you had done while you were in active addiction, what would you change?
Do you know what? I wouldn't change what happened to me. And this might sound a bit cliche, but I actually feel like that's made me who I am today, and it makes me my fight for recovery even more. I'd probably change the fact my sister passed away so she could see what I am now. Yeah. But my journey is my journey, and there's no change in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely.
I wouldn't be here today.
So if somebody was like actively like suffering from addiction, or if their loved one was, and they came to you for advice, what would be like your general advice and direction for them?
Get them into treatment, or don't enable them.
Yeah.
That's my experience though. Enabling was not helpful for me. Yeah. My mum paid for my drugs for a long time, and justified all my behaviours. And it didn't do me. I probably could have saved the depths I went to if that hadn't happened.
So, and treatment is something that you would for sure recommend.
Yeah, definitely. You need that time out. It's a healing place. It's a learning about yourself place. It's a learning about addiction and what you suffer from. You know, addiction is a massive chronic disease that affects everybody around you. You and everyone around you. You need that time to learn about that and learn about yourself and learn the tools to recover.
So, what do you think about Rainford Hall and Steps Together?
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I'd be quite happy to stay here, if I'm honest with you. What's there not to like about it? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If you're in addiction and you come here for help, at least you've got somewhere nice. The surroundings, it's peaceful. The staff seem lovely. You know, they've got a program, meetings here. They take you to meetings. It's got a bit of everything. Therapy. Yeah. What was there not to like? I went to Jamaica in January, and I've done quite a few countries now, which I'm quite blessed in that way. Like, my focus now is to work hard, not hurt people, make up for my past, you know, and go on holiday. I just live life to the full. You know, I love like hanging out with you, hanging out with all my, doing things like experiences, making quality experiences. I cherish it, you know, cherish the relationships I have. But I went to Jamaica in February, January. And I'm sitting here telling you this story about me, which sometimes feels like, oh my God, I'm remembering things that I still, to this day, I can remember things that I don't remember back then because it seems like a dream. But I had one of these moments where I was stood on the beach in the grill. The sunset was coming down. I'll never forget this, right? And I looked out. No one took a photo of me. We took a photo of each other, but I looked out and I just thought, I need to pinch myself, because I never thought that the job I've got, the friends I've got, the peace of mind I've got, standing on the beach and just being complete in what I would say serenity, and just feeling so connected with the world around me, and the love for like everything. I was just like, this is what it's all about. And I probably chase that like a drug, but I don't care because it's the best feeling ever.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I think seeing the world and experiencing people and different cultures and different foods and all of that, and seeing the world for what it is like the most valuable thing in the world.
I'll share this. When I was in treatment, I had this experience when so I always visioned, because of that obsession as well, I was on tunnel vision for all those years, looking, that was like, everything was like that. There was drugs at the end. When that went, I saw the world and I appreciate the beauty in the world today. I can remember looking at a leaf, a dead leaf, and going, isn't that beautiful? Because it seemed like it was something I'd never really appreciated it. And ever since then, the world's just looked technicolor, and I've appreciated everything in it, and people. I care about people, you know? And I never thought that I would experience the world in that way, you know? And I remember, like, and I spoke about the mirror, right, in that disabled toilet. I can remember in my detox, when I was actually detoxing, I could see myself a bit clearly, and then I could really see me. And now I can look in the mirror and be so comfortable with who I am, and I never thought that possible. And that's recovery.
Yeah.
And that's what's given everyone back everything. My mum and dad, my family, like, they look at me and they say they're proud of me, and I'm proud of me, and that just makes me warm inside.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's one of the best things in the world, man.
I've seen it with your family.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and it's inspirational.
No, I agree. I agree, man. Well, I mean, you're one of my best friends. Super grateful that you came and shared your story with us. And yeah, man.